Hey guys, how's it going, dude? I'm back with another video. In fact, this is the first video of Halloweek. This week I'm going to be bringing you lots of bonus videos centered around Halloween, horror, lots of spooky things. So look forward to that. And today's video is going to be where it all began. It made sense to me to do a video on the origins of Halloween. But before we do the origins of Halloween, I just want to give a shout out to my patron of the day, Liam Dowd. Liam, thank you so much for being a patron. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all my patrons. If you want to become a patron for as little as £1 a month, the link is down below. Thank you to all my patrons. Okay, let's jump into the origins of Halloween. So, Halloween. Do I really need to explain the premise to you? And during Halloweek, during the build up to Halloween itself, one of the most celebrated and favoured holidays in the UK and in America, second only I'd say probably to Christmas. I have many fond memories of going trick-or-treating as a child, seeing, not doing, but seeing some tricks being played on people, on my estate, in the local area where I would go trick-or-treating. One of the craziest things I'd ever seen was when they did a number 2, a poo, in a paper bag and then set fire to it, knocked on someone's door, left it on their doorstep, and when the person opened the door, they stamped out the bag that was on fire and stamped in the poo. So yeah, you've got egging, you've got flower bombs, you've got all sorts, but you've also got the nicer side, the treating to trick-or-treating, where you go around and you collect lots of sweets. And during my childhood I collected a hell of a lot of sweets. One crazy house which made no sense whatsoever, over here it's kind of like if you have a pumpkin in your window, that's kind of like an invitation, to come in and to receive some sweets, right? Knock on the door, you'll get some sweets because there's a pumpkin outside. So we walk up to this house because there's a pumpkin in the window, and as we get closer and closer, the pumpkin has some writing carved into it, and lo and behold, the pumpkin had "piss off" carved into the pumpkin. So it's like you've gone to the lengths to get a pumpkin and carve it, which makes people think, oh, we're being invited to trick-or-treat at this house, only to carve "piss off," kind of like a middle finger, go away. Whereas really, if you hadn't have made the pumpkin in the first place, then people probably wouldn't have knocked on your door. But it's created a memory for me, so happy days. So yeah, that's my experience as trick-or-treating in a nutshell. And now let's jump into the origins. Samhain is the origin. 2,000 years ago. It's spelt Samhain, but it's Celtic and it is pronounced Samhain. It's an ancient Celtic festival. Now, in modern times, Samhain is actually celebrated from October 31st to November the 1st. And the idea is to bring in the harvest and welcome the darker half of the year. Now, ancient Celtic people around 2,000 years ago in Ireland, the UK, in northern France, used Samhain to mark the midpoint between the fall equinox and the winter solstice. It kind of represented the end of the warm winter, the safety of the long days, and marked the beginning of the cold, dark winter. And obviously, back then, when you didn't have the safety of light and warmth, it was often attributed to people dying because it was very hard to survive those long winters. So that is how death and the paranormal, if you like, was attached to this festival, how Samhain represented death itself. And they believed that on October the 31st, the line between life and death became blurred, and you were able to communicate with the dead on this day, and the dead were able to, or the spirits were able to come back and would often wreak havoc on the people, on the harvest, on the farmlands. And so this festival was put in place to kind of ward off that evil, those spirits. Now, the Celts would wear costumes, normally like dead animal skins and skulls and stuff, but that's the parallel as to why we wear costumes today. And they would use this time to tell each other's fortunes and futures. Inside people's homes, you'd have a hearth, which is basically like a fireplace where you'd cook and heat your house and survive. And these would be left to burn out while workers would gather in the harvest. Now, after this harvest was harvested, everyone would come together and the Druid priest would light a community bonfire. And from this bonfire, people would take the fire back to their homes to relight their hearths. This communal bonfire was seen as a ward to deter spirits. They would sacrifice cattle, they would sacrifice crops to this communal bonfire, to the Celtic deities, to hopefully get a good harvest the following year and healthy cattle and, you know, not die over the winter. Apparently around this time, great feasts would happen and people would just get really drunk and eat lots of food. Pretty much. Now, ancient texts have actually been found from around this time that shows that this was like a mandatory thing, and to not turn up, to not show and not partake in this festival could actually lead to death. Not only if you didn't participate or show yourself to the kings and chieftains within your village, also if you were to bear arms, weaponry during this time, a similar fate would come for you. So around 43 AD, the Romans turn up, right? They conquered all of the Celtic regions. And as with many things in history, as you know, different places come over and conquer, etc., religions, faiths, festivals, belief systems tend to get amalgamated. So a kind of Roman Celtic culture was formed. This included Feralia. Now, Feralia was a celebration of the dead in late October, as well as the next day celebrating the Roman goddess Pomona, whose symbol was the apple. And this is most likely where we get the whole bobbing apple thing from. Let's fast forward again to the 8th century. Now the Christians are coming over and conquering, so we get more amalgamation. And Pope Gregory III designated November the 1st as a time to honour All Saints. Now soon All Saints Day was incorporated with some of the traditions of Samhain, because there was obviously Celtic/Roman cultures around the area. The evening before this All Saints Day was known as All Hallows Eve. Starts to sound a little bit familiar, doesn't it? Within a 200-year period from here, the Christian Church made November the 2nd All Souls Day as a day to honour the dead. Now, it is widely believed that basically the church was trying to replace the Celtic festival of Samhain with a church-sanctioned holiday. Now, this change wasn't really that much of a change, because there were still massive parallels between the two, right? Because you had massive bonfires, you had costumes, you had feasts. The name itself was eventually changed to All Hallows, then All Hallowmas, almost like Christmas and Halloween put together, which I know a lot of people would love. And then after a long period of time, it eventually became Halloween, as we know it today. Well, by name anyway. So we're moving hundreds of years here, okay? And eventually Halloween moves over to the US of A. And to this day, in America, Halloween is a massive event. To put it in perspective, Americans apparently spent $490 million on costumes in 2019. For their pets, not for themselves. $500 million on Halloween costumes for their pets. 1/4 of all sweets, or candy as it's called in America, 1/4 of candy sold in America is specifically purchased for Halloween. However, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. When it first came over, however, it was very, very limited because it was a very strong Protestant faith, which, you know, was very strict. But with different European ethnic groups, as well as the American Indians, meshed, a more Americanized Halloween was born. This included public events that had like play parties. Neighbors would share stories of the dead, tell each other fortunes, dance together and tell ghost stories around fires. Between 1920 and 1950, trick-or-treating became a very big thing. And trick-or-treating was like an inexpensive way for communities to celebrate this holiday, as well as, you know, having a community feel. And this would also prevent any tricks being played because, you know, you are bribing the children with sweets. It is the whole principle, isn't it? The whole concept of trick-or-treating. Now, this began to grow and grow and grow, the whole trick-or-treating thing. Halloween grew massively in America, and the trick-or-treating concept came back over the pond to the UK, and we have adopted it ever since, and it is now part of our yearly Halloween tradition. So there we go. That is how a Celtic tradition turned into a capitalistic dream. No, but it's, you know, that is how it originated from Samhain in like 2,000 years ago to today, where, you know, kids roam the streets getting sweets, and we go to parties dressed up and get smashed as adults. So yeah, what do you think about the Halloween tradition? What do you think about Halloween? Is it your favourite time of year, or do you prefer Christmas? Halloween or Christmas? Let me know down below. What are you doing for Halloween? What are you dressing up as for Halloween this year? If you go into a party, let me know. And yeah, what do you think of the origins of Halloween? I would love to know. Let me know down below. I hope you enjoy Halloweek, what I've got for you this week, and enjoy your Halloween too. Lovely, guys. Thank you so much. Sweet one. Geese.